Kings Island currently has a large vacant plot of land where Vortex used to stand. Ever since it saw its last riders at the end of 2019, everyone eagerly awaits to see what could fill the massive empty plot. Here are my predictions for what will replace Vortex at Kings Island. Vortex opened at Kings Island in 1987 as the world's tallest full-circuit roller coaster at 148 feet, and had the most inversions of any coaster in the world at the time with 6. I never thought the ride was this groundbreaking until after doing some research. Vortex cost about $4 million to build and gave about 46 million rides across the 33 years it was in operation. This is one of the most popular and frequently ridden attractions in KI's history. It previously occupied the land where the original Bat was removed just 4 years earlier, after the initial Aero prototype was a failure. Even the memorable Bat station was reused for Vortex, but was sadly demolished upon Vortex's removal. And that brings us to today, a big empty plot of land surrounded by a wooden fence. For a worthy successor, I think it's fair to assume that Cedar Fair will consider 4 major selling points: manufacturer, elements of Vortex, the coasters at Cedar Point, a neighboring park, and what the park needs for their lineup. Cedar Fair's main go-to manufacturers recently have been GCI and B&M, but they will go outside the box for something more specialized, like Tumbili built by S&S, the 3 RMCs they built in 2018, Steel Vengeance, Twisted Timbers, and Trailblazer, Hangtime built by Gerstlauer, and the new in 2023 for Cedar Point Wild Mouse, built by Zamperla. While Cedar Fair does favor a few manufacturers, they do go outside the box from time to time. So the only major manufacturers I think can be completely ruled out at this point is Intamin. Cedar Fair's relationship with RMC is in question as well, with all the issues they've had on Steel Vengeance. But all that is speculation and not confirmed, so I won't count them here. And with all the success RMC is having recently with Iron Gwazi, I find it hard for Cedar Fair to turn a blind eye and give up on RMC that quickly. Also, did you know Cedar Fair has never built a ride by Premier Rides at any of their parks? So it's fair to say it won't be a Premier either. Kings Island also has 4 Woodies: Racer, Beast, Mystic Timbers, and Woodstock Express, all of which are very different from one another, so I think it's safe to say that this will not be a wooden coaster either, and we can safely rule out any GCI Woody or Gravity Group. This project will almost certainly be a steel coaster or a hybrid. So far, we have established it likely won't be an Intamin, a Premier, a GCI Woody, or a Gravity Group. Next, let's examine what Vortex was. This is really important because Cedar Fair has been going in a direction to remember and pay tribute to defunct coasters by using similar elements and ride types. For example, just look at next year in 2023. They're opening Wild Mouse at Cedar Point, which pays tribute to the original Wild Mouse they used to have there, and Worlds of Fun is opening Zambezi Zinger, which is reusing the name and the iconic spiral lift hill that the defunct Schwarzkopf Zambezi Zinger used. It's safe to assume that Cedar Fair could do the same thing with Vortex. Vortex debuted as the tallest full-circuit coaster in the world, so it's probably not going to be the height record that's broken. I find it very hard to believe that they would try to break the height record at Kings Island, especially in this plot of land. The second aspect that made Vortex stand out was its inversions, and I think this is what could be prioritized in what will replace Vortex. I'm not saying they will try to break the inversion record again, which would need to be 15 today, but I think the coaster will have inversions similar to Vortex. Other than the 2 inverts at the front of the park, in Invertigo and Banshee, the only other coaster at KI that goes upside down is Flight of Fear, with 4 inversions. Another component Vortex had is that it was extremely photogenic and sits in a prime spot that's well viewed from the path. Kings Island will undoubtedly pick a coaster that can show off cool elements and zoom by the walkway during the ride if this plot is used. Third, let's look at what neighboring park Cedar Point has. I think it's safe to assume that Cedar Fair isn't going to want Kings Island to have a copy and paste kind of ride layout of any of Cedar Point's coasters. While it's possible Kings Island builds a ride similar to Cedar Point, I think it's highly unlikely, especially models that are really similar to each other, like B&M dive coasters, B&M wing coasters, or like a Gerstlauer spinner, like Wild Mouse that they're building at Cedar Point next year. Now let's identify what Kings Island has in their lineup and what they could need. They already have plenty of wooden roller coasters, in the 4 that I named earlier: Beast, Mystic Timbers, Woodstock Express, and Racer. They have one of the best GCIs, or if not the best GCI in Mystic Timbers, one of the best hypers in Diamondback built by B&M, a Giga Coaster in Orion, one of the biggest and best B&M inverts in Banshee. They have multiple family coasters, such as Backlot Stunt Coaster, Adventure Express. They've got kiddie coasters, such as Great Pumpkin Coaster, Woodstock Express, and Flying Ace Aerial Chase. They have an indoor roller coaster in Flight of Fear. So the main things that they're missing is an extreme or really intense launch coaster. Kings Island has Flight of Fear and Backlot Stunt Coaster, both have decent launches, but neither reach even 55 miles per hour. So this is being a little bit nitpicky, but Kings Island's also missing an ultra elite coaster. In my opinion, all of Diamondback, Orion, and Mystic Timbers are elite rides. They're really great rides, but they're not top 10 worthy, such as Maverick or Steel Vengeance would be at Cedar Point. Another thing Kings Island is missing is a gimmicky coaster, like a spinning coaster. They've never had a spinning coaster at Kings Island, or one that has cars on the side of the track, such as a 40 free spin or a B&M wing, or a coaster with solid ejector airtime. The roller coasters at Kings Island hardly offer any ejector airtime at all, and their lineup could really use some variety with different manufacturers. Think about it for a second. Kings Island has a great lineup that goes super deep. There's really no bad rides at the park when it comes to coasters, but they have no Gravity Group, S&S, Mach, Intamin, Gerstlauer, or RMC in the park, which is just crazy. Now on to my predictions. For each prediction, I will give a percentage of the likelihood I think it'll be built. Number 5, a ground-up RMC Hybrid. I really think that Kings Island would benefit from having an RMC, and I think they will someday, but I don't think this will be the location for it. A solid RMC iBox would give Kings Island that much-needed ultra-elite coaster and the ejector airtime machine that the park really needs, and it could pack the inversions too. I love dreaming that Kings Island could get an RMC Son of Beast someday, and I really hope they make it happen. If this is built in Vortex's plot of land, then it can even branch out and interact with the Beast in some way too. Because face it, the Beast will never be RMC'd, even though some of us want it to happen so badly. But after the Gravity Group's retracking and the classic history of the Beast, it's never going to happen. And I want to be clear here, when people say RMC Son of Beast, I think they get the wrong idea. When I say RMC Son of Beast, I mean a ground-up RMC with its own unique and custom layout. It does not and should not reuse Son of Beast's crappy and boring layout, but should be something totally original and awesome on its own. The name and theme could then resemble something ghost-themed to match Son of Beast coming back to life, like Revenge of Son of Beast or something like that, after being put to rest. This does not change the fact that I think there's a chance of a ground-up RMC in Vortex's plot of land, but I think it's very unlikely. So I'm going to give it a chance of occurring at about 5%. They may also not want to build an RMC Hyper Hybrid similar to Steel Vengeance, but I believe RMC can build a ride different enough that it can still be considered, especially when it would be a ground-up coaster. For my 4th pick, a next-gen Vekoma. Vekoma has returned with a bang and is producing world-class roller coasters overseas in Europe. I believe a Vekoma renaissance is about to happen in the US, and a couple of major thrill rides are finally coming to the US built by Vekoma in the next few years. We are now seeing Disney, Hershend, and independent parks like Codaland even working with Vekoma to build world-class rides opening soon. Our Bermuda Blitz model would be fantastic in this area and be a great launch coaster that could benefit Kings Island's lineup big time to give them a more intense launch, snappy inversions, and ejector airtime that they need in a compact space. Cedar Fair said they would initially be much more conservative with their spending post-COVID, especially on roller coasters, so Vekoma would be a much cheaper option than a lot of other major manufacturers, especially for launch coasters like Intamin or Mach, so it may appeal more to them in the future. The new generation of Vekoma is here, and it's only a matter of time before they make their splash fully known in North America. The question is, how long will it take Cedar Fair to give them a chance and give them a project? And will it be at Kings Island? I don't think so. So I'm going to give it about a 10% chance of happening. Up in 3rd, we have a Gerstlauer Infinity model. Vortex opened with the most inversions ever on a roller coaster, and the main manufacturer who could contend with the record today is Gerstlauer. The current world record is the Smiler at Alton Towers built by Gerstlauer in England with 14 inversions. The current record in North America is Steel Curtain with 9. This ride could have multiple launches, a vertical lift hill, and a beyond vertical drop too, both of which Kings Island does not offer. This is a very enticing model, but most Gerstlauers are packed into a tight space and full of inversions, with a somewhat lower capacity due to less seats on each train. And for these reasons, I don't think a Gerstlauer Infinity is too likely, especially in this plot of land where there's a lot of space and they have a lot that they can do with it, so I give this about a 15% chance of occurring. At number 2, a GCI Titan Track Hybrid. At this point, it is still unclear if GCI is diving fully into the hybrid market with their Titan Track. They have yet to build a roller coaster completely with their hybrid Titan Track. They've just put it on portions of wooden coasters that they are now building. However, with Worlds of Fun building Zambezi Zinger, it could be a bit of a test run or a prototype before diving all in on a Titan Track hybrid project. If Cedar Fair does not want to continue with RMC, a GCI Titan Track hybrid would likely be a similar model but a very different experience, and it would be different enough from what Cedar Point has to offer. Cedar Fair has been one of GCI's best customers in recent years, so if anyone is willing to give them a chance with a hybrid project, a full hybrid Titan Track project that is, I think Cedar Fair is the one to do it, so I give this a 30% chance of happening. Now briefly before getting to number 1, I want to make an honorable mention to various B&M models. I really don't think Kings Island's going to build any more B&Ms in the near future, and I don't want them to either, because I think they need a more intense ride experience and a different ride experience than what B&Ms offer at the moment. 3 of the last 4 roller coasters at Kings Island have been B&Ms, so they remain a real possibility. Diamondback in 2009, Banshee in 2014, Orion in 2020, and then Mystic Timbers being the only non-B&M built at Kings Island in the last 15 years. So I think it's most likely that Kings Island builds a B&M flying coaster, if they do build a B&M, as a kind of a replacement for Firehawk, because they have pretty much every other B&M model. They already have an invert, they have a hyper, they have a Giga, and Cedar Point, just 3.5 hours up the road, has a wing coaster and a dive coaster already, so it doesn't really make sense for them to have a wing or a dive coaster, and I don't think Cedar Fair would want to have coasters that similar to their sister park 3 hours away in the same state. We also have to look at Cedar Fair's history with B&M flyers. There aren't any. Of all the coasters Cedar Fair has built with B&M, none of them have been B&M flyers, and there has to be a reason. It may be the high price tag, maybe the insane amount of electrical equipment, or high maintenance costs. Regardless, we are not going to see a B&M flyer here, and I don't think we're going to see any B&M model built at Kings Island in the next 10 years or so. And finally, for my number 1 pick, for what I think will replace Vortex at Kings Island, and what I want to replace Vortex, is the Mach Extreme Spinner. After Cedar Fair added Copperhead Strike to Carowinds, we knew that they were willing to branch out and go with other manufacturers like Mach Rides. If they do go with a Mach, I really hope they go with a Mach Extreme Spinner. Kings Island has always needed a gimmicky coaster and has really never had one, and they've never had a spinning coaster either, so I believe this is a real possibility and would be a great fit for the park. Now that Cedar Point is building a mild spinning coaster in Wild Mouse in 2023, it is all but confirmed they will not be building a Mach Extreme Spinner at Cedar Point. It makes no sense for them to have multiple spinning coasters in the same park. A Mach Extreme Spinner would fit so well at Kings Island. It just seems like something that is destined to happen. Both the GP and enthusiasts would love this ride, and the closest one being at Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City, over 6 hours away, would make it even more of a destination to hit. The spinning is somewhat magnetized, so you don't spin completely out of control, but it is different enough that every ride is unique. Not only could this give Kings Island another launch coaster, but it could give them inversions like Vortex had with the spinning coaster, and fill a major gap in the park. And if it's anything like Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland, a potential top 10 roller coaster in the world. It would also look so picturesque on the walkway going past that plot of land. This one I'm giving a 40% chance of happening. Make it happen, Cedar Fair. That concludes this video of my top predictions for what will replace Vortex at Kings Island. Question of the video today, what do you think will replace Vortex, and what do you want to replace Vortex? Sound off in the comments below, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and I hope every single one of you has a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.